Dr. Park Hannah knelt in the dark underground tunnel, her hands shaking as she looked at the secret files on her screen. 3 months ago, the alien ships called the Vorthok had destroyed Sol with their terrible weapons. The city was now just a hole in the ground that glowed with deadly light. Her mother, her father, her younger sister, all gone in just a few minutes. The old mine shaft had been turned into a secret base. Everywhere she looked, people were working frantically. Scientists bent over computers, soldiers checked weapons, and engineers tried to fix broken machines. General Kim Taiwan walked back and forth between the work tables, his face grim and tired on the big screens around the room. Hannah could see pictures of the most frightening creatures ever found on Earth. These were not animals from the surface world. They came from places so deep in the ocean that no light had ever reached them. Others had been frozen in ice at the bottom of the world for thousands of years. All of them were locked away because they were too dangerous to let free. Dr. Park, the general, called to her. His voice was sharp and urgent. "Show me those readings." From the metaleader again, Hannah pressed buttons on her computer and brought up the information about something the files called Entity Alpha 7. The scientists had nicknamed it the Metaliter, which meant metaliter in the old language. This creature could dissolve any kind of metal just by touching it. Then it would rebuild the metal into new shapes, following some kind of intelligence that was older than humans by millions of years. "General," Hannah said, her voice weak with fear, "if we let these things out of their cages, they won't be able to tell the difference between alien machines and human machines. They will eat everything made of metal." Across the room, Lieutenant Lee Minho was watching the space sensors that looked far out into the darkness beyond Earth. Suddenly, he sat up straight, his face turning white. "General, we're seeing huge gravity waves in space. The long-distance cameras show. Oh God, there's another fleet of Vorthok ships coming toward us. They'll be here in 3 days." General Kim looked at the battle map on the main screen. Earth's defenses were pitiful. Just a few broken space stations, some scattered weapons on the ground, and communication systems that barely worked. Against the massive alien fleet, they might as well try to fight with rocks and sticks. "Dr. Park," the general said quietly, "start the release procedures." "Sir, the mind tests we did on Entity Beta 3 showed that just being near it drives people crazy, Doctor." The general's eyes showed no hope at all. Only cold anger. "They burned our cities to ash. They killed our children. If we're going to die anyway, let's make sure we drag them down with us." Hannah looked around the underground room at all the people who were left. Scientists who had lost their universities, soldiers who had lost their armies, ordinary people who had lost their families. Everyone here had the same look in their eyes, the look of people who had nothing left to lose. They all knew what horrible things were about to be set free, but they also knew there was no other choice. The computer was asking for her secret codes to unlock the cages that held the ancient monsters. Her finger hung over the keyboard, trembling. Once she pressed these keys, there would be no way to take it back. The things they were about to release had been locked away for good reasons. They were not pets or tools that humans could control. They were forces of nature that cared nothing for human life. But outside in space, the alien fleet was getting closer. In 3 days, more cities would burn, more families would die. The Vorthok had come to wipe out every human being on Earth, and they were almost finished with their terrible work. "Forgive us, God," Hannah whispered to herself, and typed in her codes, far away. Under miles of ice at the North Pole, machines that had kept the monsters asleep for 30 years began to shut down. Warning lights flashed red in empty hallways. Thick metal doors that had never been opened started to swing wide. From the darkness behind those doors came sounds that no human ears should ever hear. The creatures that had been sleeping in the deepest, coldest, most hidden places on Earth began to wake up. They stretched and moved and remembered what it felt like to be free. Soon they would be hungry. Soon they would want to grow and spread and consume everything around them. Humanity had made its choice. Rather than die quietly like sheep, they had chosen to become the shepherds of monsters. The Vorthok thought they were coming to finish off a beaten enemy. Instead, they were about to meet the true guardians of Earth, things so terrible that even humans had been afraid to wake them. The war for Earth was about to begin again, but this time, humanity would not be fighting alone. The soldiers cut through the thick metal doors with their laser tools, their breath-making white clouds in the freezing air. Captain Yujinwu watched the temperature readings on his suit, -40 degrees, and getting colder as they went deeper under the ice. His team had been walking through these tunnels for 2 hours, following maps that were 30 years. "Hold there," said Sergeant Kim Hyeri, pointing her flashlight at a massive steel door. Red warning signs covered every inch of it, written in Korean, English, Chinese, and Russian. All of them said the same thing. Danger, do not open, authorized personnel only. Behind that door was the thing the scientists called ferrovor. It looked like living metal that could think and move on its own. The reports said it ate any kind of metal it touched, then used that metal to build itself into new shapes. Captain Yu typed the release codes into the computer panel. The door made a deep groaning sound as it slowly opened. Inside the room, they could see a silver blob about the size of a basketball, sitting in the middle of a glass cage. It looked harmless, almost pretty, like mercury that someone had shaped into a perfect sphere. "Is that it?" asked privately Dongyun. "It looks so small." The moment the glass cage opened, everything changed. The silver blob moved like water, flowing across the floor toward an old metal table. The moment it touched the table legs, the metal began to dissolve. But instead of disappearing, the metal joined the blob, making it bigger. The creature grew from the size of a basketball to the size of a person in just minutes. Far away, under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Park Soyoung was having her own problems. She stood in the underwater station with her team, looking at a tank full of what looked like pink fog. This was the chorus. Not one creature, but millions of tiny organisms that could share thoughts with each other across huge distances. "Doctor," said her assistant, Kim Woojin, holding his head in his hands. "I'm hearing voices in my mind. They're not speaking Korean, or English, or any language I know, but somehow I understand them." Dr. Park was feeling it too. Ever since they had started preparing to release the chorus, strange thoughts had been creeping into her mind. She saw flashes of memories that were not her own, alien landscapes, creatures with too many eyes, stars dying in distant galaxies. "It's already reaching out to us," she said, trying to stay calm. "The chorus wants to connect with our minds, before we even let it out." Back in space, the Vorthok aliens were starting to panic. Admiral Kethanor stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 of his scout ships had simply vanished while investigating the human planet. The last messages from those ships were screams of terror as something ate through their metal hulls. "What are these humans doing?" he growled to his officers. "Our sensors show impossible energy readings from their planet. On Earth, the had found an abandoned military base. It flowed through the empty buildings like a silver river, consuming everything metal it touched. Tanks, weapons, computers, even the metal frames of windows. Everything became part of its growing body. But as it ate more metal, it began to learn. It studied the designs of the weapons it consumed, then started building new versions that were better and stronger. In the Pacific, Dr. Park made her decision. "Open the containment tank," she ordered. The pink fog that was the chorus flowed out into the ocean water. Within seconds, every person in the underwater station could feel it in their minds, not as voices, but as emotions and images. The creature was trying to understand humans by connecting to their thoughts. Kim Woojin suddenly grabbed the communication equipment. "Doctor, I can feel it reaching out across the ocean. It's trying to connect with other minds, not just humans. but anything that can think. Up in space, the Vorthok fleet was in chaos. Their ship computers were receiving strange signals that made no sense. Pilots were losing control as confusing thoughts filled their minds. Some ships crashed into each other because their crews could no longer tell which thoughts were their own. But the worst was yet to come. In a deep ocean trench where no human had ever been, something that had slept for millions of years began to wake up. The scientists called it the Depth Walker, but it had no name in any human language. It was so alien that just seeing it could drive a person insane. The creature began to move through the water, but it didn't swim like a fish or walk like a person. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, appearing in one place and then suddenly being somewhere else entirely. Reality bent and twisted wherever it went. Dr. Park Hanna, back in the underground command center, watched all the reports coming in. The War was growing stronger by the hour. The chorus was connecting minds across the entire planet. And now, the Depth Walker was awake and moving through dimensions that humans couldn't even understand. "We've done it," she said to General Kim. "We've released the monsters, but I'm not sure we're still in control of anything." The general looked at the approaching Vorthok fleet on his screens. "Control was always an illusion, Doctor. All we can do now is hope our monsters are hungrier than theirs." Admiral Vextel's massive warship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. He had come expecting to find a dead world, ready to be picked clean like the bones of some defeated animal. Instead, his sensors were screaming warnings that made no sense. Fleet Commander, his second-in-command, clicked nervously, his four eyes blinking in distress. "The gravity readings around the human planet are impossible. Our computers cannot figure out where anything actually is." The Admiral stared at his screens in confusion. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting around Earth. Stars appeared in the wrong places. His navigation systems kept giving him different answers about where his own ship was located. The first group of Vorthok fighter ships flew toward Earth's moon to begin their attack. What they found there was beyond their worst nightmares. Where the asteroid belt used to be, there was now a living structure made of metal and rock that pulsed like a giant heart. It was the War, grown massive by eating everything in its path. Captain Sung Ji-hoon watched from his small human fighter as a Vorthok destroyer approached the metal creature. The alien ship was huge, bristling with weapons and armor. But the moment it came too close, something incredible happened. The ship's hull began to melt like ice in the sun. The metal flowed away from the ship and joined the growing creature, making it even bigger and stronger. "My God," Song whispered into his radio. "It's not just eating their ships, it's learning from them." The War had absorbed so much alien technology that it was now building its own ships, vessels that looked like no human or alien design ever created. They moved through space like living things, flowing and changing shape as they flew. But they carried weapons that were far more advanced than anything the Vorthok had ever built down on Earth's surface. Something even stranger was happening. The chorus had spread its influence across the entire planet, connecting not just human minds but also the minds of captured Vorthok soldiers. Lieutenant Park Min-jae sat across from one of these alien prisoners. Metal wires connected to his head that allowed him to speak for the creature. The captured Vorthok soldier was shaking with terror, all four of its eyes wide with fear. Through Park's voice, it spoke in broken human words. "Your people. Not what we thought. You joined with things that are wrong. Things that make us know fear for first time." Dr. Park Hanna stood nearby, but she no longer looked completely human. Weeks of connection with the chorus had changed her. Her eyes sometimes glowed with strange light, and when she spoke, her voice carried echoes of thoughts from thousands of other minds. "What did you expect?" she asked the alien through Part. "You came to kill every human being on Earth. We chose to wake up the monsters rather than die quietly." Through her connection to the Chorus network, Hannah could feel the terror of Vorthok soldiers across the solar system. They had come expecting to fight primitive humans with simple weapons. Instead, they found themselves facing creatures that existed outside the normal rules of reality. The Voidwalker was the worst of all. It appeared in 17 different places at the same time, as if it existed in multiple dimensions at once. Vorthok ships that encountered it found themselves trapped in loops of time, where the same minutes repeated over and over again. Some ships aged hundreds of years in just moments, their crews turning to dust while their vessels crumbled apart. Admiral Vextel received report after report of impossible losses. Entire squadrons of ships were vanishing or being destroyed by forces that his science officers said could not exist. "Send an emergency message to the homeworld," he ordered. "Tell them the humans have not fought us with normal weapons. They have awakened things that are older than our civilization. They chose to become devils rather than accept death." General Kim Taiwan coordinated Earth's defense from his command center, but he too had been changed. His body was now part machine, part human, and part something else entirely. The Pharaoh had given him metal skin that protected him from radiation, and the Chorus allowed him to give orders to every enhanced human on Earth, just by thinking them. "The aliens are trying to retreat to the outer planets," he announced through the mental network. "Don't let them escape. Wake up the Deep One. Far beneath Earth's oceans, in trenches so deep that no light had ever reached them, something ancient began to stir. The deep Leviathan had slept for millions of years, but now it rose through dimensions that had no names. Where it moved, space itself bent and folded like paper. The Vorthok fleet tried to move to a safe distance so they could bomb Earth from far away, but they found themselves caught in a gravity trap that existed in multiple dimensions at once. When they fired their biggest weapons at the creature, their energy beams disappeared into holes in space, then came out somewhere else to hit their own ships. Dr. Parkana's voice echoed across every Vorthok communication channel in the solar system. "You came here to burn our cities and kill our children. We decided to free the things that even we were afraid of, rather than let you murder us. This is what we became when you forced us to choose. Now the question is, what will you become to try to stop us?" The surviving Vorthok ships began their desperate retreat toward the edge of the solar system, but the creatures they had awakened were already following them, spreading beyond Earth's influence, and growing stronger with every passing hour. The hunters had become the hunted. 20 years had passed since the alien ships fled from Earth, and the world was no longer the same planet where humans had once lived normal lives. From space, Earth looked like a giant living machine, covered in metal structures that pulsed with strange light and energy that made the very air shimmer. Director Park Hannah stood in the place where Seoul used to be, but the city she remembered was gone forever. Instead of concrete buildings and busy streets, there were now towering structures made of living metal that grew and changed shape like plants reaching toward the sun. These buildings were connected by streams of pink light, the Chorus network, that linked every enhanced human mind on the planet. Hannah herself looked nothing like the scientist she had been 2 decades ago. Her body was kept alive by technology that was part machine, part alien creature, and part something else entirely. Her skin had a metallic shine, and her eyes glowed with the same pink light as the Chorus network. She had lived through years of changes that had rebuilt her at the level of atoms and molecules. "Director," came a voice in her mind, not through her ears. Commander Lee Soyan was speaking to her through the mental network that connected all enhanced humans. "Our sensors are picking up new ships approaching from deep space. These aren't Vorthok vessels." Lee Soyan was no longer just one person. Her consciousness had been split and copied across 17 different bodies, each one serving a different purpose in Earth's defense system. Some of her bodies worked in space stations, others deep underground, and still others in the ocean depths. All of them shared the same mind and memories. Through the chorus network, every enhanced human on Earth immediately knew what Li Soyan knew. The approaching ships were massive, far larger than anything the Vorthok had ever built. Their technology was so advanced it seemed to break the basic laws of physics. These vessels belonged to the hegemony, an ancient race that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. General Kim Taiwan felt the shared information flow into his consciousness from his command center, deep beneath what used to be Australia. His original human body had died years ago, but his mind now lived inside a hybrid creation of human thought and metalophage technology. He existed as both a person and a living machine, able to think at speeds no normal human brain could match. "What do our analysis systems tell us about these ships?" he asked through the mental network. Dr. Cho Sunwoo, now the chief science coordinator, responded immediately. Her voice came from laboratories on 3 different continents simultaneously. "The hegemony represents the most advanced civilization we've ever detected. They've existed for over 3 million years. Their ships can manipulate time and space itself." "Threat level?" Kim asked. "Total extinction of Earth within hours, if they decide to attack us seriously," came the reply. "But General, the entities are showing interest. They see the hegemony as a new source of knowledge to absorb and learn from." The creatures that humanity had awakened 20 years ago had grown far beyond their original forms. The Pharaohvore now extended throughout the entire solar system, its metallic body incorporating technology from dozens of alien species it had encountered and consumed. The chorus connected minds across multiple star systems, making humanity effectively immortal through shared consciousness. The Voidwalker had created permanent tiers in space and time, allowing Earth to exist in several different dimensions at once. Captain Yoon Daeho commanded one of Earth's new defense ships from the edge of the solar system. His vessel was not built. It had grown from metalophage technology, a living ship that could repair itself, adapt to new threats, and evolve during battle. Through his enhanced senses, he could perceive the approaching hegemony fleet in ways that normal human eyes never could. "The lead hegemony ship is sending us a message," he reported through the network. "They're demanding that we surrender immediately and submit to planetary quarantine." Park Hannah considered their options through her connection to all the entities at once. She could feel the metalophage reaching out through quantum connections, already beginning to analyze hegemony technology. The chorus was probing their mental defenses, trying to understand how their ancient minds worked. The Voidwalker was studying their dimensional manipulation abilities, learning to copy and improve upon their methods. "Send them our response," Hannah decided. Her voice, when she spoke aloud, carried harmonics that existed in multiple dimensions. "Hegemony fleet, this is Earth. We are what humanity became when faced with extinction. We released the entities because survival required it. We integrated with cosmic forces because the alternative was death. You offer us quarantine. We offer you the same choice we gave the Vorthok: leave our space, or discover what we become when cornered." The hegemony commander's reply came quickly, transmitted through reality-bending technology. "Your species has violated the fundamental laws that keep the galaxy stable. You have released entities that threaten the structure of space and time itself." "Yes," Hannah replied simply. "We chose to become monsters rather than die as victims. The question is, what are you willing to become to stop us?" Through the network, every enhanced human felt the entities beginning to reach toward the hegemony. Ships the metalophage was already touching their hulls through quantum entanglement. The chorus was mapping their neural patterns. The Voidwalker was preparing to fold space around their fleet. Earth's transformation was accelerating again. Humanity was no longer fighting as victims. They were preparing to face the galaxy's oldest civilization as the monsters they had chosen to become. 50 years had passed since the alien ships first attacked Earth, and the solar system had become something that broke the basic rules of how the universe was supposed to work. Ambassador Park Hannah appeared in the great meeting hall of the Galactic Council, but her body kept changing as she stood there. Sometimes she looked like the human woman she had once been, and sometimes she looked like something that made the alien delegates turn away in fear. The Earth Collective asks to be officially recognized as a member of the galactic community, she announced to the gathered representatives of 47 different alien species. When she spoke, her voice carried strange sounds that seemed to come from multiple dimensions at once. Ancient Zardok, speaking for the hegemony, studied her with sensors that could see in 17 different types of light. Your species has become a disease that infects reality itself. The creatures you joined with are spreading beyond your star system. Yes, Hannah replied, showing no shame. We were about to die. Now we are growing stronger. Through the quantum networks that now connected Earth to 12 different star systems, she could feel her transformed people scattered across the galaxy. Commander Lee Soyan was exploring the center of the galaxy, her mind split across a fleet of ships that were alive and could think for themselves. Dr. Cho Sun Wu had built research stations in folded space-time, studying the basic forces that held the universe together. Captain Yoon Daeho commanded defense platforms that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time, protecting against threats that most species could not even see. The entities have grown far beyond what they originally were, said the science director of the council. A being made of living crystal, whose species had been traveling between stars when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. They now show signs that they are actively changing the structure of space and time to help themselves spread even further. General Kim Taiwan projected his presence into the meeting chamber. Though his physical body no longer existed in any one place, his consciousness now served as the main connection between human will and the cosmic entity's power. Honored representatives, we never meant to become what we are now, but when we faced complete extinction, we chose transformation instead of death. Every species that has threatened us has been given the same choice: live alongside us or be absorbed. A Vorthok delegate, one of the few survivors of the species that had first attacked Earth, transmitted its statement through encrypted quantum channels. We came to their world as conquerors. They responded by setting free things that should never have been awakened. We learned too late that humans are not just another species. They are the universe's ultimate survivors. They will pay any price, make any sacrifice, become any monster necessary to keep existing. Ancient Zarthok accessed historical records that went back 3 million years. In all our time watching galactic civilization, we have never seen a species willing to change so completely rather than accept extinction. The philosophical questions this raises are enormous. With respect, Hannah interrupted, philosophy is something you can afford when you have other choices. We had none. The great chamber fell silent, as all the alien representatives tried to understand what this meant. Through her connection to the entity network, Hannah felt new contacts being made across the universe. The metalophage had reached the Andromeda galaxy, making contact with machine minds that had been sleeping for eons. The chorus was connecting with hive minds that stretched across entire clusters of stars. The Voidwalker had begun talking with entities that lived in the empty spaces between different realities. What do you want from us? Asked the council leader, a being of pure energy that had given up physical form millions of years ago. Recognition, trade agreements, cultural exchange, Hannah replied. We are still learning what we have become, but we remember what we were. Humanity's basic drive was always to explore, to discover, to connect with others. And if we refuse to recognize you, Hannah's form shifted, showing glimpses of the cosmic forces she had become part of. Then you will discover what we are willing to become to ensure our survival. We have already proven we will embrace any horror rather than accept extinction. When the vote came, it was unanimous. The Earth Collective was granted recognition as a sovereign power, with the understanding that their expansion would be watched and, when necessary, limited. As Hannah prepared to return to Earth, Ancient Zarth approached her privately. Your species frightens us, it admitted. Not because of your power, but because of your willingness to sacrifice everything you were, to become something that could survive. Fear shows wisdom, Hannah replied. We learned that when our cities burned. The real question is not whether you should fear us, it is whether you are prepared to become something equally monstrous, if your survival depends on it. She materialized back on Earth, where the transformed world pulsed with hybrid technology and cosmic energies. Humanity, as it had once existed, was gone forever. But something new had taken its place, something that remembered love, hope, and curiosity, but had proven it would sacrifice even those memories if survival required it. In the deep space monitoring stations, sensors detected new threats approaching from beyond the edge of the galaxy. Ancient machines, reality-warping entities, cosmic forces that saw organized matter as a disease to be cured. Humanity began preparing for the next transformation, knowing that each victory would make them less recognizable as the species they had once been, but ensuring they would remain something that endured. The stars held infinite dangers, but Earth had proven that, when cornered, humans would free any monster, embrace any horror, become any devil necessary to survive, and in that terrible willingness lay their ultimate strength.